we're learning more about the attempted legal side of the coup after the 2020 election, specifically in Georgia. And let's talk a little bit about what was going on. Now, we know that in Georgia, as in many states, there was an attempt to take the electors, the sort of human component of the Electoral College, the people who are designated to like officially cast the ballots that officially decide who becomes president. And the Republicans decided that that's not convenient to us because those people are gonna do what they're supposed to do. We're gonna choose our own electors. And they're just gonna say that Trump won. Now, they would argue that they're not doing anything wrong in doing that. Everything they were doing was legal and constitutional. That said, take a look at how they were communicating about this little plot. A staffer for Trump's presidential campaign instructed Republicans planning to cast Electoral College votes for Trump in Georgia, despite the fact that Joe Biden had won, to operate in, quote, complete secrecy, according to emails obtained by the Washington Post. This is Robert Sinners, the campaign's election operations director for Georgia, who went on to say, I must ask for your complete discretion in this process. Your duties are imperative to ensure the end result, a win in Georgia for President Trump, but will be hampered unless we have complete secrecy and discretion. This was the day before 16 Republicans gathered in Georgia to sign certificates declaring themselves to be the electors. And by the way, the email goes on to instruct the electors to tell security guards at the building that they have to do this in that they have an appointment with one of two different state senators. Please, at no point should you mention anything to do with presidential electors or speak to the media, which is definitely how you talk about your totally on the up and up, cool constitutional plot that you're doing. What do you think?
I mean, honestly, these people are very clearly so good at doing things that should be illegal, but are not technically illegal, because the precise definition of seditious conspiracy means that you have to use physical force. They're not using physical force. And if anyone looks at this and still believes we need the Electoral College and should have the Electoral College versus popular democracy is insane. Because this is the kind of thing that it leads to and probably will lead to in the future with people like this seeing that they can grab power in this way.
Yeah, and look, the thing about the response to the 2020 election, the thing about January 6th was we simultaneously have to care about and take seriously and attempt to ward off future iterations of multiple veins of this coup. We don't want more January 6th. We don't want more, whether you consider it to be a relatively organic grassroots violent mob or a mob that was assembled by right-wing political actors directly or indirectly connected to Donald Trump and right-wing organizations and then dispatched to do this. Whichever you think it is, we don't want more of that, certainly. We also don't want the electors things or the attempt to pressure Mike Pence or the various other legal schemes that weren't explicitly violent, but were just as hostile to the Constitution, to the core of American democracy. The issue really is that people don't seem to be bothered by either of those things anymore, a lot of people, and I'm gonna get to one poll result that I think demonstrates that. And we also are no better equipped to ward off either of those things. In fact, arguably, with the fact that the right has been so successful in changing election laws in multiple states, including some of those who were core to the 2020 debacle, and have been running a ton of insane partisan hacks to take over secretaries of state, chiefs of county elections boards and things like that. We're actually less well equipped to ward off these things. And so as we enter into a week that is supposed to be the highlight of the investigation into January 6th and maybe our last best effort to get people focused on this, I am extremely worried about both aspects of this, Jessica.
Yes, I think the law and justice are not the same. We keep talking about this I was just on the watch list yesterday and we're having a similar conversation. But if they didn't do anything technically illegal, that shouldn't matter for American voters. They're trying to change the outcome of an election so that the result is not what the majority of people in this country wanted. Does that sit right with you? Is that the kind of country you want to live in? And you're right, a lot of these people don't care about democracy anymore. They just want the people that they support to get in office by any means. And they're really advocating for the downfall of democracy, whether they realize it or not. And I think many of them do. And they just don't care. And that's really scary because this is a huge faction of our country that is no longer interested in democratic processes. And they've made it really clear in all of this talk on especially Tucker Carlson's show about, great white replacement theory and things of that nature. They really don't want popular democracy in this country. And it means that they're going to keep supporting candidates that will continue eroding our democracy.
Yeah, 100%. I think that when the numbers demographically, racially seem to benefit them, given the choice, they'd like to have the vote on their side. They'd like that. Why not? That makes them feel good. It's like doing like really easy, low cost charity work or something. Like it makes you feel better or whatever. But at the end of the day, they want to win. They want the power, and they're willing to dispense with democracy. They've been very clear about that. One final piece of evidence going into the January 6th. I just want to read, we don't have this as a graphic, I don't believe, but CBS has a new poll on interpretations by party of what happened on January 6th. And so for instance, was this an insurrection? 85% of Democrats say yes, 21% of Republicans say yes. That actually isn't even the result that I find most troubling. I think that the word insurrection can mean different things. I think it would be more insurrection-y if there had been tanks involved, less if the crowd. Like I think that there's sort of a scale of insurrection, but was it an attempt to try to overthrow the government? Only 18% of Republicans say yes. It was explicitly designed to intimidate Congress into voting differently. 47% say it was patriotism. 56% say it was defending freedom. And January 6th, like not the senators and the reps, the crowd, that is supposed to be the part of all of this that is easiest for us to identify as unacceptable, as crossing a line. There's legal ambiguity and complications about Donald Trump trying to intimidate people, or a call to Raffensperger, or the alternate electors thing, or the trying to stop the certification by the elected officials. All of that, they can create all of this dust that's supposed to cloud the motives there. But the mob of violent people breaking through the windows and doors and trying to kill people with their bare hands, that's supposed to be the part that all of us can agree was bad. And 56% of Republicans say that was just defending freedom. Nearly half say it was patriotism. It wasn't just a morally ambiguous thing. It was a beneficial good thing. It was a moral thing that they did. And that is the environment that we are going to launch into these hearings in, an environment where so many conservatives approve of what happened and aren't even going to see the hearings where the evidence laying out what actually was done is revealed. Any final thoughts, Jessica?
Yeah, I think about how things like this can embolden certain people. I think about the Colbert Report and how that was satire. And if you watch the Colbert Report and you were on the left, you were like, this is great fun. We're poking fun at conservatives. But if you watch the Colbert Report and you were conservative, you were like, this is great fun. He's poking fun at leftists. I think this trial can have a similar impact where some people who believe that this was, a patriotic act fighting for freedom, they might look at this hearing and say, wow, these guys were really fighting on our side for us from the inside, and support them even more. And then the rest of us are going to be horrified by the evidence that's presented. I think it could have a polarizing effect.
I think that you might be right. We're gonna have to see. I mean, if any even watch it, but you're right, they might like it. I don't know. I don't think many of them have seen like a lot of the footage of, the trying to like take a pro cop flag and beat a cop to death with it. But if they did, would they actually be appalled by what they saw? You might be onto something. Maybe they wouldn't.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.